His name appears only briefly in Genesis, a single verse, 7 words that have haunted theologians and mystics for 3,000 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for God took him. No death, no burial, no grave. The ancient genealogies hammer the same refrain like a funeral drum. And he died, and he died, and he died. Every patriarch, every generation, consumed by the same darkness. But not Enoch. The Hebrew phrase, ve'enenu, means more than he was gone. It carries the weight of sudden, complete absence, as if reality itself was rearranged and Enoch was no longer part of it. For centuries, Jewish scribes whispered about what Enoch had seen, what he had written down before his mysterious translation. They called his writings the Sefer Hanok, the Book of Enoch. And what this book contains would shake the foundations of everything you thought you knew about angels, about evil, and about the invisible war raging over this world since before humanity drew its first breath. For 1,500 years, the Book of Enoch was officially non-existent. The Apostle Jude quoted it directly in his New Testament letter. Early church fathers, Clement of Alexandria, Irenaeus, Tertullian, treated it as scripture. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church never stopped using it as canonical text. But somewhere between the 2nd and 4th centuries, a decision was made. The councils that codified the biblical canon excluded it. Officially, uncertain authorship. Unofficially, because of what it said about the angels. For a millennium it was buried. Then, in 1773, Scottish explorer James Bruce returned from Ethiopia with 3 complete manuscripts. The Western world saw the full text for the first time in 1,000 years. But it wasn't until 1947, when a Bedouin shepherd threw a stone into a cave above the Dead Sea and heard shattering clay, that the ancient Hebrew originals resurfaced among the Dead Sea Scrolls, matching the Ethiopian manuscripts almost perfectly. The book was real. The book had always been real. What does it actually say? The Book of Enoch is specific in a way most ancient texts are not. It does not speak in vague generalities. It gives names, numbers, a location. The location is Mount Hermon. It rises over 9,000 feet above sea level. Its summit dusted with snow even in summer. Its ancient name derived from the Hebrew root meaning consecrated, though some scholars argue the word carries the darker connotation of under a curse. The text describes the event with the precision of a witness. And they descended upon Ardis, which is the summit of Mount Hermon. The number? 200. 200 watchers. Divine beings whose function was to observe and guard over humanity, descended here under a sworn pact. The Hebrew word is shavua, covenant. They bound themselves together before descending because they knew it was forbidden. And they descended anyway. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them. But to reduce the watcher's fall to desire is to miss the deeper horror. What followed was not simply sin. It was the systematic corruption of the human world. The Hebrew word is irin, the watchers. A specific order of divine beings whose function was to observe, to stand guard, to serve as the eyes of heaven. Not the winged seraphim of popular imagination, something older, something that resists modern categories. Their leader, Semyaza, my name has seen. A name carrying the weight of someone who should not have been visible in human sight. Under him, named lieutenants. Azazel, the name that would echo through centuries of Jewish demonology, the being to whom Yom Kippur's scapegoat was sent. Armoros, Barakel, Kokabel, Tamiel, Ramiel. Not generic demons, beings with specific domains, specific knowledge, specific corrupting gifts. They were the sons of heaven who chose to become the sons of earth, and they had no idea, or did not care, what they were about to unleash. From the union of the watchers and the daughters of men came children the Greek text calls Nephilim. The same word Genesis 6 drops without explanation. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. No elaboration, just a terrifying statement of fact. The Book of Enoch provides the context Genesis withholds. These offspring were of extraordinary physical magnitude, their appetites described as Rauraban, insatiable, bottomless. They consumed everything the earth produced, then turned on animals, then on human beings, consuming flesh and drinking blood. But the physical giants were only part of the catastrophe, because alongside them, the Watchers brought knowledge, ancient celestial secrets, technical arts humanity had not yet developed, and perhaps was never meant to develop at the pace the Watchers introduced them. The Watchers did not simply corrupt humanity through the Nephilim. They educated them. Azazel taught men to make swords, shields, and armor, the working of metals, the forging of weapons, and taught women the arts of ornamentation, dyeing of cloth, antimony for the eyes, jewelry, and adornment. Semyaza taught enchantments. Barakel taught astrology. Kokabel taught the constellations. Shamsiel the signs of the sun. Sadiel the course of the moon. Read this list slowly. In the theology of the Book of Enoch, this is the origin story of civilization's darker capabilities. Not human discoveries arrived at through patient cultural development, but downloads, transmissions, knowledge injected into humanity before it was ready to bear the weight of it. And there arose much godlessness, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. There is a passage in the Book of Enoch unlike anything else in ancient religious literature. It is the passage where the earth cries out. Not metaphorically. Creation itself, in the cosmology of this text, has a voice that reaches heaven. As the violence of the Nephilim spread, consuming and destroying everything, the earth cried upward in agony. And the earth made accusation against the lawless ones. The accusation reached the four archangels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel. Standing before the throne of God, they brought the sound of creation's suffering before the Almighty. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets preserved in heaven. And Semyaza and his companions have gone to the daughters of men, and defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. Not a local incident, a cosmic catastrophe. The secrets preserved in heaven had been stolen and distributed, and the archangels were asking the question that still echoes. What will you do about this? The answer from the throne was not immediate. It was absolute. To Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, cast him into the desert darkness of Dudael, cover his face, to remain until the day of judgment. To Gabriel, authority over the Nephilim, set them against each other, let their own violence consume them. To Michael, bind Semyaza and all the Watchers for 70 generations beneath the hills of the earth, until the final judgment and the abyss of fire. And to humanity caught in the devastation, a promise. Not rescue, a promise. The seed of the righteous will survive. His name was Noah. You know the story of Noah. Every civilization has a version, but the Book of Enoch reframes it entirely. The flood is not primarily a punishment for general moral failure. It is a surgical intervention, a divine quarantine response to a specific contamination. The Nephilim had corrupted the earth, not only morally, but at a deeper level the Enochic tradition describes as genealogical. The offspring of Watchers and human women represented a mixing of realms never meant to occur. Noah's purity is described in language beyond the ethical. Perfect in his generations, Tamim Bedrotav, interpreted by numerous scholars not merely as moral wholeness, but as lineage integrity. His bloodline had not been mixed with Watcher blood. He was, in the most precise sense, the survivor. Enoch himself is shown a vision of the flood before it comes. He sees the waters rising and weeps, not with triumph. Even for those who brought destruction on themselves, the sight of their end is cause for grief. The flood killed the bodies of the Nephilim, but the Book of Enoch makes a distinction most people have never heard. The bodies died, the spirits did not. The giant shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. The Nephilim became the demons, not fallen angels, not the watchers themselves. The disembodied spirits of the dead Nephilim, half divine, half human, belonging to neither realm, condemned to wander in an existence that is neither life nor death. Because they are part human, they long for physical experience, entering bodies, driving people toward destruction, hungering for sensations they can no longer access. Because they are part divine, they carry a corrupted power that enables harm in ways purely human evil cannot match. This is the Book of Enoch's answer to the question every culture has asked. Where do evil spirits come from? Born here, on this earth, on the summit of Mount Hermon. Of all the watchers, one name accumulates more theological weight than any other: Azazel. The name appears in canonical Leviticus 16, the Yom Kippur ritual. One goat was sacrificed. The other had the sins of Israel placed upon its head and was driven into the wilderness, for Azazel. For 2,000 years, interpreters argued whether this was simply a Hebrew word for scapegoat. But the Dead Sea Scrolls community and the Book of Enoch are clear. Azazel is a proper name, a specific being. And the goat driven into the wilderness was a literal sending back. The sins of humanity return to the being who first taught humanity to sin. The whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. All sin. Not some, all. His punishment? Buried in the darkness of Dudael, face covered, awaiting the final fire, is the most severe sentence pronounced on any of the watchers, because the crime was the most severe. The fallen watchers asked Enoch to be their intermediary, to carry their petition to God, to beg for mercy. The request was denied. But in delivering God's response, Enoch was taken up. He was shown the storehouses of wind, the corners where thunder is kept, the treasury of hail stored against the day of judgment. He saw the spirits of the dead waiting in separate regions. He saw the watchers themselves, Semyaza and his companions, bound beneath the earth, faces cast down, silence absolute. And finally, before the throne itself. The description is unlike anything in canonical scripture. The throne like crystal, the ground like fire, the heavens above like water. Everything shining with a light that has no source, because everything is the source. And from the center of that light, a voice Enoch cannot describe with human language, only with the feeling it produces. Like the sound that everything is afraid of. Among the most remarkable sections of the Book of Enoch is the astronomical book, where the angel Uriel shows Enoch the precise mechanics of celestial motion. The sun through its gates, the moon through its cycles, the stars in their appointed courses. But the deeper point is not scientific accuracy, it is cosmic obedience. Every star follows its path. The cosmos is a picture of absolute obedience to divine command, set in direct contrast to the watchers who abandoned their appointed function. In a haunting passage, Enoch is shown certain stars that are bound and imprisoned, stars that did not rise at their appointed seasons, stars that disobeyed. A star that falls from its orbit is a being that abandoned its function, and the darkness that results is not merely astronomical. It is the darkness that enters the world when those whose purpose is to shine choose to fall. The Book of Enoch's Book of Parables extends the narrative into the eschatological future. Enoch sees the elect one on a throne of glory, judging the kings of the earth. He sees the bound watchers brought before that throne, their faces full of shame, their power stripped. He sees the mighty of the earth standing with nowhere to hide, realizing with finality that nothing they accumulated saved them. And he sees something with no parallel in any other ancient text. The watchers, at the moment of final judgment, speak, not with defiance, not with pride. What they say carries the weight of everything they lost. We have hoped to be the head and have become the tail. Beings who abandoned heaven to seize what they wanted from earth, who traded the eternal for the temporal. At the end of everything, they recognize what the trade cost them. They gained the world and lost everything that made the world worth being part of. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, among hundreds of recovered texts were multiple copies of the Book of Enoch, the oldest manuscripts ever found, written in original Aramaic and Hebrew, dating to at least 200 BCE. The Qumran community was actively reading, copying, and preserving it alongside canonical scripture. Also discovered, the Book of Giants, a previously unknown Enochic text describing the Nephilim in even greater detail. The giant offspring of the Watchers were not a marginal detail. They were the subject of an entire literary tradition preserved across multiple languages and centuries. If the Book of Enoch represents a genuinely ancient tradition, if the Watchers' narrative was transmitted rather than invented, then the question it forces is one no institution has been fully willing to answer. What exactly happened at the beginning of human history? The mainstream church rarely teaches this. The New Testament references the Book of Enoch, not obliquely, directly. The letter of Jude quotes it verbatim. 2 Peter refers to angels who sinned and were cast into darkness in gloomy dungeons awaiting judgment, precisely the Watcher narrative. 1 Peter refers to Christ after his crucifixion, preaching to the spirits in prison who disobeyed in the days of Noah. In the context of the Enochic tradition, these spirits are unambiguously the Watchers, bound beneath the earth, visited by the victorious Christ whose resurrection represented the beginning of their end. The Watchers and their story are not the background to the New Testament. They are, in a very precise sense, the problem the New Testament is answering. The influence of the Book of Enoch does not stop at the edges of Judaism and Christianity. Islamic tradition preserves Idris, mentioned twice in the Quran, raised to a high station, identified by many scholars with Enoch. The Sufi tradition elaborates him as a celestial figure who ascended through the heavens and received esoteric knowledge, paralleling the Enochic journey precisely. In Kabbalah, Enoch is transformed into the angel Metatron, the highest of all angels, the celestial scribe nearest the divine throne. The profound irony is complete. Enoch, the human chosen to carry God's judgment to the fallen Watchers, becomes himself the supreme guardian of the boundary the Watchers destroyed. The Watchers crossed the line and destroyed a world. Enoch crossed the same line and became its protector. The official reasons for excluding the Book of Enoch from the canon don't hold. Uncertain authorship? So is Job. Complex theology? So is Revelation, which contains imagery drawn directly from Enochic tradition. The real answer? The Book of Enoch creates theological problems easier to manage if the book doesn't exist. The Watcher narrative places the origin of evil in a cosmic invasion with a named architect, raising the question institutional religion cannot easily answer. Why was the invasion permitted? The demonology implies the world is far more dangerous than institutional religion wants its followers to believe. And, most dangerously, if the forbidden knowledge transmitted by Azazel is the origin of astrology, divination, and metallurgy, then every tradition built on this knowledge is traceable to the same source. Not a principle, not a concept. Azazel. The Watchers are bound, the Nephilim are dead. The flood came and went. And yet, the knowledge Azazel gave humanity has not gone anywhere. It has been perfected beyond anything the ancient texts could imagine. We have built weapons capable of ending civilization multiple times over. The vanity arts have become one of the most powerful economic forces on Earth, entire industries built on the architecture of inadequacy. Astrology and divination are practiced by hundreds of millions worldwide. If you follow the Enochic logic to its conclusion, none of this is coincidence. The knowledge was introduced, the seeds were planted. The Watchers are gone, but their curriculum remains, embedded so deep in human civilization it is now indistinguishable from culture itself. The Book of Enoch does not tell us this to drive us to despair. It tells us this so we might see clearly. The first step toward freedom from any captivity is recognizing the walls. The Book of Enoch does not end in darkness. The final vision Enoch is given is not of the abyss. It is of a city, a new Jerusalem, a renewed earth, a place where the tree of life, sealed away since Eden, is finally accessible, where the long exile finally ends. The archangel speaks words that have never stopped being true. Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Fear not. The two most repeated words in all of Scripture. Not be impressed, not be terrified. Fear not. The watchers fell, but they are bound. The Nephilim ravaged the earth, but the flood came. The evil spirits wander, but they are named. And what can be named can be confronted. Enoch walked with God through a world already broken. He was shown its bottom and its heights, its prison and its throne, its abyss and its garden. And on the other side of all of it, he was still walking. The same God who sentenced the watchers, the same God who spared Noah, the same God who took Enoch without death, is still walking. And Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for God took him. No grave, no ending, just a man, and the God he would not stop following, disappearing together into a horizon that has no end.